Well, good morning and welcome to our allergy-filled, newsy part of our program, What in the World is Going On? And it's, what is today? When this is being recorded, it's Thursday, April the 28th. Is that right? No, April the 21st. Throwing time away, and at my age can't afford to do that. Anyway, a lot of things taking place around the world in the news scene. One of the things kind of interesting is Obama is visiting Saudi Arabia, supposedly one of our great friends in the Middle East. They're our friends when they're looking at you, but they're not our friends when they when you turn your back on them. Anyway, he's over there, and I thought it was interesting. He got snubbed by the head guru of Saudi Arabia. He sent some of his underlings out there to greet Obama. You know, what goes around comes around. You remember when Netanyahu visited the United States and Obama snubbed him? Our only real friend in the Middle East, and maybe the most dynamic friend we've got in the world. And that relationship is going away and will continue to go away as long as this guy's in the White House that's there now. But at any rate, I remember in 1958, I was stationed in Saudi Arabia with the Air Force. These people hated us with a passion. And it hadn't changed, as far as I can see. I remember that what we were doing over there was giving them airplanes and trying to teach them how to fly them. And what they were giving them, you're going to have to excuse a little bit of the nose itching this morning. The allergies are flourishing, or the whatever pollen is flying around. But at any rate, we were giving them T-33 trainers and F-86 fighter jets, and then trying to teach them how to fly them. How well did they do? I remember on one occasion, I was a tower operator. I was too young to fly then, even though I later went back into the back as a civilian flight instructor in the Air Force T-41 program, and have flown business jets and so forth through the years. Point is that I was in the tower, and their number one colonel, big shot, best pilot they've got, on two successive days, he landed an F-86 fighter jet wheels up. Somehow he couldn't get it through his brain that these things need something to roll on. They don't slide too well. And then years later, when I was with the Air Force washout program in Hondo, Texas, out from San Antonio, and what this program is, when the young troops with their brand new degrees came into the Air Force and their dreams of being a fighter pilot were finally about to be realized, the T-41 was the first plane that they would have interaction with. And the Air Force used a lot of civilian pilots to help in this program. And so they'd put them through the Air Force flight instructor school. And I thought I was a pretty hotshot flight instructor up until I went through the Air Force school. Found out I didn't know doodly about really instructing. But at any rate, we had 10 missions to put our troops through. In other words, 10 training missions, dual, in the T-41s, and they were required to solo. If they couldn't, then there was other training, and they could go back to basket weaving or whatever their degree might be in. Now, during that same time period, we had a deal with Saudi Arabia and Kuwait, and we were doing the same thing with them, but we had 21 missions to solo them, which very seldom happened. For whatever reason, and I'm not downing them, there's some good people over there, but basically, anyway. So that's kind of the way that is, and Obama is, when he went over there the first time, not too long after he was president, he bowed to the king and kissed his ring, and then apologized for who the United States is. And that's kind of the disgrace that this man has been to this nation. Anyway, that's my opinion, like it or not. Another thing, this on the horizon, on Tuesday, I think it was, last Tuesday, Kerry, who's another joke, but at any rate, he was supposed to meet with the Iranian Foreign Minister Zarif in New York to discuss implementation of the nuclear agreement. Excuse me, That should have been discussed before the stupid thing was ever signed. Now, question comes up. In fact, I had a viewer a couple of weeks ago that sent in an email and said, is it possible, or do you believe that Iran will ever abide by this agreement and actually stop their move forward at creating a nuclear weapon? And my answer, here again from my opinion, absolutely not. Why? Why wouldn't they do that? Because there's another spiritual agenda behind them developing a nuclear weapon and then using it primarily on Israel and the United States. Now, without getting into a lot of, remember, this program is not designed to be an in-depth, point-by-point teaching on anything. I'm very controversial. I enjoy controversy. If you and I are standing and talking about something, we're probably getting an argument before it's over with. And I think that's not bad. I think debate is the way you learn stuff, the way that you reevaluate what you believe to make sure that what you're. And remember that when I first, I think it was on the TV portion of this thing, and I talked about the funnel, and I said to imagine. I wish I had a funnel. I'd show it to you. Anyway, imagine a funnel, and that funnel is full of little flash drives. Now, hey, this is a flash drive right here. This is a little tiny one, but it's amazing how big that thing is. That's a little flash drive right there. And this one doesn't, it does got a lock on it right there. So as long as that lock is open, then you can change all that information. You can erase it, use it for something else, so forth, whatever. If that lock is closed, then you can't use it. Now, what I ask you to visualize is a funnel full of flash drives. And all these flash drives have all this information on it. Stuff like we're talking about, stuff like we're bringing to you on the ghost and on the fallen angels and so on and so on like this. And this stuff is my opinion. I'm not going to give you an in-depth, this is the only way it works, interaction on the thing or discussion on it, put it that way. All of these things are subject to reevaluation and so forth. Now, there's one thing that's not, and what I said down in the tip of that funnel, there's one flash drive that's absolutely locked up. You can't touch it. And the information on there says, for by grace are you saved through faith, not of works, lest any man should boast. If you believe in your heart that God raised Jesus from the dead, you'll be saved. Jesus said, I'm the way, the truth, and the life. No man comes to the Father except through me. Now, in my opinion, that's untouchable. I'm not even going to discuss it other than try to relay to a person how he can move into this relationship with Jesus Christ that is life-changing. Anything else, the rapture, politics, all of these things we can discuss, and I may change my views. I have not arriven, that's not a good word, at the fullness of the knowledge of the truth. I don't have all truth, but I've got some opinions. And if you've got a contrary opinion, you better have some basis for it, because if you just say, well, my opinion is this, and then I say my opinion is that, if I've got more basis for my opinion, I'll chew you up. At any rate, that's another story. Iran. Just very briefly, we've got to move ahead with the other stuff for the program. I did a radio program on this here a while back, and you may or may not have listened to it, but it bears mentioning. Ahmadinejad, the past president of Iran, was a nutcase on this idea. And that is that in order to bring back the Islamic Messiah, who is called the Mahdi, he's the 12th Imam from back in the, I don't know, the 10th century or whatever, back in there. And something, he disappeared, and they surmised, without getting into a lot of the detail, because that's not what I'm going to do, he is supposedly in a well out in a little town out from Tehran. And at some point in time, he will crawl out of that well, and he will implement worldwide peace. And the way he's going to do that is to forcibly bring in the whole world under Islam and under Sharia law. If you believe that, I got a bridge in San Francisco I'd sell you cheap today. But at any rate, supposedly, according to their legend, Jesus Christ will come back with him and kind of apologize, say, hey, man, I really never did mean to say that I was the Son of God. Kind of forget that I'm actually a Muslim and stuff like that. But at any rate, in order for this to happen, there has to be what they define as worldwide chaos. Now, their view is that in order to create this worldwide chaos, they need to build a nuclear weapon and use it to nuke Israel and the United States and other places in the Middle East. That's one thing that Saudi Arabia is afraid of, is that they are on the short list for Iran to do something bad with. That's what I understand. But at any rate, all of these things are part of what's going on today, and it's part of what's going to usher in the end times. All right, there's a lot of other things. We could make a 30-minute program on nothing but the crazy news that's going on around the world, and this political thing we got going on now is kind of a big part of it. But at any rate, let's break off of that now and move into the subject matter for the program today, which is, are fallen angels, the evil spirits, and the demons that are talked about in the Bible, and to what extent are they terrorizing and upsetting actions in the world today? I'll be back in a minute. We'll talk about that. Now, let me remind you of the way I've chosen to kind of set up these little things, these programs. I don't want to get into a long, detailed study. There are people out there that do that, and that's great. They're interesting programs and so forth. That's not my point here. Rather, I want to present a number of bullets, if you want to call it that, just points. And my challenge to you is, if you're interested, get on the internet, pull up Google, put in some keywords about whatever part of what we are talking about that you're interested in. You'll be bombarded with all sorts of opinions and so forth. But what I like to see people do is to not take what I say as gospel, look it up, search it up. Try to form your own opinion on it. That way it becomes usable in your own life. Now, in beginning this, we're talking about, in this particular session, fallen angels. Is it possible that ghosts or the evil spirits that are rampant? I mean, I've run into these things in other countries and so forth, and of course they're all through the Bible, in the ministry of Jesus and in the ministry of some of the other folks. Disembodied beings of some kind that make appearances and so forth, and they seem to be, for the most part, looking for some body that they can inhabit in order to carry out their evil. That seems to be the overriding drive of these things. And for somehow, in some way, they occasionally appear as a spiritual entity that may in some cases take on the look of some former human being. Now, I don't presume to know how that works, and I don't think anybody else does either. But we can present some points. Now, in doing this, I want to start out by just presenting some points concerning eternity past, because these things didn't just come on the scene in the 20th century or whatever, or on this side of Christ, or you can go on and on with that. They've been around since the beginning, and they're tricky, they're deceitful. Now, in our next session, we're going to find out who they are. I think you'll be convinced that I'm right on it. But their point is to drive human, at least in this era we live in, to drive people away from faith in Jesus Christ and to move them into other areas of belief and so forth. But they've been around a long time. So let's kind of go back. I want to just give you some points, and you can find, like I said, you get on the internet and pull up keywords or put in keywords at Google, whoever. There are other people, other things that do the same thing, not just Google. I'm not sure I said that right. But anyway, one thing to start with, and going back to the beginning, is what I believe to be a tremendous gap, a time gap, between Genesis 1:1 and Genesis 1:2. Well, what makes you think that? Well, in Genesis 1:1, it says, "In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth." Now, if you look at the Hebrew, and really dig into the Hebrew usage of that term, created, you'll find that it indicates that that creation was, I think, literally breathed out from the very heart of the Creator. He didn't make the universe from other material that he happened to have laying around in a galactic storage shed. The universe was created out of nothing that had pre-existed. Now, in the second verse, it says, "And the earth was without form and void." Now, I'm not going to try to get into the minds of the translators. There's a lot of questions I've got about some of the translations, and we'll talk about some of this next session. Why they left some things out of the canon that I can't see that they had a reason to do, but that's my opinion. You may strongly disagree with that. That's fine. But the word was, the Hebrew word was, Bahu, doesn't matter about that. But every place else, except one other account in the Old Testament, that word is translated became. Now, there's a statement in Isaiah that says God did not create the earth without form and void. So what the earth was in the second verse of the first book of Genesis, second verse in the Bible, is not what it was created to be. It's something that it became as a result of some type of cataclysmic event. So I want to present to you, this is a point, look it up and see what kind of a decision you come up to, that there are probably billions of years between Genesis 1:1 and Genesis 1:2. Now, this allows the Bible to agree with a lot of history or a lot of science, because this gives room for the ancient humanoids like the Cro-Magnon man, where they've been able to pull DNA off of some of the remains that's not even human, and a Neanderthal, that the evolutionists like to point to as our ancestors, which they're not. And also for dinosaurs, things like this. This gives room for all of that. We know that the world that was inhabited by dinosaurs was not this side of the creation of Adam and Eve. That's real easy just by running the genealogy to come up with. Well, taken with that, what happened between Genesis 1:1 and Genesis 1:2? Just everything out there just through space and nothing going on? Let me present to you that I think there's some indication in the Bible. You can look in Isaiah. In fact, you can get on the internet here and using these keywords, pull this stuff up and look it up for yourself, that the universe was totally inhabited. Now, before you get over the shock of that statement, if you've never heard it before, I believe that the focal point or the future of the universe now is to, at some point in a future that we can't even imagine of, it'll be reoccupied. and there will be activity throughout the universe. At this point in the past, it seems that it was ruled over by angels. And evidently, they didn't do a very good job of it. The indication is that Lucifer was the head dude. He's the prime archangel, the anointed cherub, and all these other things that the Bible refers to him as being. Now, there are scholars. I mean, these are guys that really made a lifetime of studying this stuff. And you can find all this on the internet, that believe that our solar system had more planets in it than it has now. That it had probably 5 giant planets like Jupiter is and so forth. And that these planets were angelic homelands for the prime rulers of this inhabited universe. That'd make a movie. At any rate, there is a lot of belief that the home planet of Lucifer was called Rahab. And that, now hang on, you can see some of this evidence in Isaiah and so forth. Look it up, study for yourself. But there is some evidence that Lucifer was in charge of intergalactic commerce. It talks about Lucifer's merchandising, that through his rebellion he had lost his merchandising ability, if you can put it that way. Look it up. Don't take my word for it. Now, in Isaiah, the 14th chapter, and along in there, Isaiah is talking to Lucifer or about Lucifer, and he talks about Lucifer in the process of his rebellion, tearing down cities and such, and this was long before Adam and Eve. When Adam and Eve came on the scene, Lucifer had already fallen and had taken his substandard position as a totally defeated former monarch, and he had been cursed to the earth. Now, if you look at some of the things that Lucifer's accused of doing, that had to take place a long time before Adam and Eve ever came on the scene. So I want to pose to you that probably there were multiple cultures that were destroyed in the process of this and over this time period between Genesis 1:1 and Genesis 1:2. Now, so I think it's very probable that when Lucifer rebelled, God destroyed. I'm referring to my talking notes down here. I'm not smart enough to remember all this stuff. Anyway, Lucifer rebelled. God destroyed the universe along with the inhabitants except for the angels. And that in this process, he destroyed Rahab. And there's some really smart people that believe this, that have done years of study on it. And I think they're right. And the destruction of Rahab actually created the asteroid belt that we have today. It's possible that the result of that destruction is what destroyed the earth and brought it into this position of being without form and void. This talked about in what the earth became in Genesis, the 1st chapter and 2nd verse. That would have allowed for the killing of the dinosaurs and so forth and so on like this. Now, to bring this part of this to a halt, angels, these fallen angels that sided with Lucifer, they cannot be demons because demons don't have bodies. That's one of the unique things about demons. Evidently, the demons existed at some point in the past, and their bodies as such died, and now they're loose spirits and trying to do damage and trying to the other things we'll talk about later. This is not the case with angels, fallen or otherwise. All right, that's enough for you to scratch your head over. I'll be back in just a minute. The fall of Lucifer. Giant hybrid beings spawned by sexual relations between fallen angels and human women. Could they be the ones who built, or at least supervised, the building of the pyramids, of Stonehenge? What about such anomalies as Bigfoot? Could this elusive creature be the product of this same mutation? Can indications of any of this be found in the Bible, in historical records? Wow. As I listened to this bizarre set of stories being told to me by this rather strange person, everything normal within me refuted even the remotest possibility that there could be a shred of truth to the matter. Well, if the truth that might be found in a bizarre set of stories, such as is presented in the book The Missionary, the Angel, and the Backpack, interests you, then I invite you to go to my website, www.turnerbooks.info, click on the cover of the book, then you can be taken to where you can get your choice of either a softback, an ebook, or an Audible book from audible.com, iTunes, or Amazon. www.turnerbooks.info. And now back to our program. I do hope you'll take notice of some of the spots that we put on, or the advertisements for my books. I've got several books that I would really encourage you to, if you're interested, to get on primarily audible.com. Now, that's my choice. All of these books are available in print, but from the publisher, but I like to listen to books. Drive down the road, listen to books, and the one that was just advertised, the Missionary, the Angel, and the Backpack, is available as an Audible book from audible.com. If you like riding motorcycles, which I do, I spent a number of years as a motorcycle cop. Been riding Harley, still do, even at my age. Got one that's nearly new. Don't ride as much as I used to, but at any rate, still ride. And wrote a book because motorcycles are dangerous, for crying out loud. It's not that the motorcycles are that dangerous. It's the nutcases out there in cars that don't pay any attention to where they're going. That's where the danger lies, and so you just have to be careful. Anyway, there is a technique that's used. I've spent several years as a concealed handgun instructor for Texas. And there's a system of alertness, or a technique of heightened alertness, that's taught in the concealed handgun training as well as in military and so forth. And so without getting into that now, we don't have time, but I adapted that to motorcycle riding as a way to really heighten your awareness of what's taking place around you. And that's available as an Audible book as well as in print and an ebook on Amazon. And then another one is Citizen Warrior. Brain lock there. Citizen Warrior, the Ultimate Homeland Security. And it's based on the idea that I believe that our most effective deterrent against another terrorist attack are the eyes and ears of alert citizens who know a little bit about what they need to be looking for. You need to know kind of what a terrorist looks like, and are not afraid to take action if you spot something about to take place, up to and including busting a cap in somebody's forehead that you know that are about to set off a bomb and kill maybe hundreds, maybe thousands of people. That's our deterrent against another terrorist attack. Anyway, those are available on audible.com. Another one is threat awareness, and it kind of goes back to how to be aware of what's taking place around you and so forth. At any rate, I encourage you to get those. Now, to close things out, the alien question, just to lay it to rest, based on what we just talked about, I believe that the whole alien thing is nothing more than the result of a bunch of eggheads that refuse to believe in the supernatural aspect of creation, of the angels, of fallen angels, and so forth. And so in order to remain true to their evolutionary concept in a lot of cases, they take this information and move it over to claim that this is nothing more nor less than aliens, little green men with big heads and big eyes and so forth that drive flying saucers or whatever, and they come from other planets around the universe, irregardless of the fact they've never really found any evidence of anything like that. Not ironclad. A lot of conjecture and so forth and so on like this. And so they take all of these drawings. Maybe you say, well, what about the drawings on the caves that show flying machines and beings operating these flying machines? What's wrong with angels doing that? If you look in Ezekiel, the first chapter, you find a pretty clear view of Ezekiel seeing a flying machine. Now, there's a lot of different, here again, people would go a long ways out of the way to try to redefine that as something totally spiritual or whatever, but I don't believe they can really do that. So that kind of ties the idea of the ghost or evil spirits being fallen angels. It kind of ties the two together, in that the alien concept is nothing more nor less than a alternative definition of the activity of fallen angels. Well, all right. I hope that's given you some things to think about. And next time, we're going to talk about, and I think it's going to be interesting, we're going to bring out some things that I think will show the only logical conclusion as to where ghosts and evil spirits and things that go bump in the night come from. Till then, be blessed.